All right, bunch of stuff out in this new NBC News poll, but one particular stat kind of caught our eye here that we wanted to highlight for you. Let's go ahead and throw this tweet up on the screen. All right, the quote here from Harry Enton is, "No doubt Biden's unpopularity is playing a role here. However, Kamala Harris has the lowest net popularity rating 1 year in for a vice president since at least Dan Quayle." This for the NBC News poll that is out this morning and NBC polling since 1990. And you can see here, all right, let's first stipulate that this Dick Cheney plus 51 number
Jan 2000
comes right after 9/11. So, of course, he and Bush had crazy popularity numbers that, you know, quickly fell off a cliff. So let's stipulate that. But however, you've got Al Gore plus 25, Joe Biden plus 9, Mike Pence minus 6, not good, Dan Quayle minus 9, worse. Kamala Harris minus 17.
Oh my God.
And here's the thing is, you know, always with regards to the vice president, you're thinking in terms of, okay, who might be the next nominee for the major party? I mean, that's kind of what it's sort of an audition for that. And you can see how Joe Biden is now president of the United States. And that's a major part of why is because he served as vice president of the United States under Barack Obama for 8 years. But with Kamala Harris, that calculation was even more overt, because you know that it is very possible Joe Biden will only serve one term. So you really need to have in mind, okay, this is the next person that we're gonna put forward. And as we've said many times here, if you had, you know, just surveyed the scene of who have the American people thoroughly rejected, Kamala Harris, obviously they had a chance to vote for and said, thank you, no. I would say she has in office been even worse than what I anticipated. She's just unable to give a single interview without embarrassing herself. You know, all they do is leak how it's not her fault, this or that or the other hasn't gone her way.
Sexism, racism.
Of course. Yeah. And this just, I mean, people just aren't having it. She has no political skill. She's unlikable. She hasn't been able to sort of assert herself on any major issue. When they do put an issue in her hand, she complains through her staffers to the press that this is too hard to deal with. And so you end up with a minus 17 approval rating and a dire situation facing Dems.
No, that's right. Think about this. She is almost doubly less popular than the guy who couldn't spell frickin' potato, okay? That's how bad this is. Granted, things are a little different in 1990 than 2022, but I think it's very, very bad sign for Kamala Harris, but even worse sign for the institutional Democratic Party, Krystal. This goes to the monologue you did this week about Mark Cuban, which is that these people really have no institutional credibility or bench in order to fill the wants and the desires of the American people. Joe Biden is dramatically unpopular. You know who's even more unpopular? Kamala. And yet the institutional Democratic Party is held hostage by her and identity politics and accusations of sexism and racism that they cannot jettison one of the most obvious political losers of a century. I mean, I cannot think of one of the worst politicians to be on the national stage in the modern age. And yet, they can't do a damn thing. It's amazing to me, actually. It shows you both how weak they are, but how strong the hold of identity politics is on all of them.
Yeah.
And corporate politics, too, because they love her.
We'll see. I mean, because at this point, they realize this is a disaster. They realize this is a total and utter disaster, but I'm not sure that they can figure out their way out of it. And then even if they get their wish, I mean, what they really want is to be able to replace her with Amy, or ideally, I think Pete. Pete is really the choice of like the Democratic donor class and billionaire class. So even if they get their wish and they replace her with Pete, it's not like he's dramatically, on policy, he's not better at all. In fact, in certain ways, he's worse because he's more calculated, he's more committed to this idea of like, you just, you know, crunch the McKinsey spreadsheet and that's gonna fill in your values for you somehow. More sort of mercenary and I would say effective in that way. But, you know, ideology-wise, they're basically both committed to their own advancement and that's about it. But in terms of popularity, I mean, Pete did better in the presidential primary, actually made it to the starting line, did well in Iowa, but there was zero interest in him from what is supposedly the core of the Democratic base, which is voters of color. I mean, he got like 3 black people in South Carolina to vote for him, despite many efforts. I mean, they really tried, but there was just, people just weren't interested. They weren't having it. They saw through this guy. So even the savior that they think is waiting for them in the wings is going to be a total disaster.
No, I think that's correct. And this is the very interesting part of all of this, which is watching and seeing them try to handle it. They don't have any good options, which is why I do think they'll stick with Kamala in the end. Look, Biden said she will be my nominee, or running mate in 2024. Even if he doesn't run, he has to give it to her. She is the vice president. And I do think there are enough people who are in the Democratic base who would follow what Biden has to say. Also, Obama and them would come in possibly on her side. I don't see how they could cast her aside.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? What would Obama do?
He's the guy. I mean, only Michelle could beat her, but I don't think she wants to run, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think, but if Obama backed someone else, that would create a permission structure for people to move away from Kamala.
That's true.
Now, he and Kamala have history. They sort of came up at the same time in politics, so they had an affinity. I mean, that was like the first fundraiser he did outside of Washington was for Kamala Harris. So I do think that there's kind of like a relationship affinity there. However, I mean, Obama was right about Biden. His famous, like, never underestimate
his ability to screw things up.
Yeah.
That's a nice...
Sanitized.
Yeah, it's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah, and obviously did not back his vice president. And, of course, Joe said, I asked him not to endorse me. Okay, sure. Which is kind of a clever move on his part, but obviously, like, everyone saw through that. Obama liked Beto more. I think he liked Pete more, although he said Pete was, like, too short or something like that.
True, actually. I recently saw Pete on the street here. He's a short guy. I don't trust that.
I mean,
sorry, short people. You have to be 6'3" to be
president. I have nothing against short people, but it is true that it's apparently is a political problem. Anyway, that's the least of Pete's issues. Let's just say that. Obama is hardly the political genius that he's been sold as, but he does have some instincts, and I think he probably is clever enough to see that Kamala would be a disaster. So I guess that would be one outlet.
He endorsed Hillary, Krystal. I don't know.
Yeah, but that was about protecting his own legacy.
True.
Because Bernie, if Bernie does single payer health care, well, what is that? That makes Obamacare look pretty small and pathetic and like the giant health insurance giveaway that it ultimately was. But yeah, to your point, I mean, he's no political genius here, but I think he could probably see that Kamala Harris is a disaster. So if he were to back someone else or stay sort of studiously above the fray or make moves behind the scenes, he would be the one that I think could cause them to go in another direction. So we'll see.
There you go. We'll see. All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll have more for you later. Hey, guys. Thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut. Our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions. All that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.